You have to sell that though. So many recruiters forget you have to sell that we are not a staffing agency, that you are hiring us to find passive candidates who are not looking to make job changes so they can get this great opportunity, and you're not fighting with 7 other firms and 9 other recruiters. No, it's what we do. I go and find you a gainfully employed candidate and say, hey, there's this great opportunity around the corner. Why wouldn't you want to talk to them?
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenly, and welcome to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we've got a great interview ahead of us, but before we get into that, I just want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we've got shows within the show here. Some days like today, we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, while other days we cover things like trending topics, items that recruiters are talking about or will be very soon and what those mean for them. Stop by every Tuesday for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. Some days we open it up for Q&A. Listeners can drop in questions that they'd like to hear us take on, so send those to us at podcast@loxo.co. And occasionally Matt will join for a mic drop episode where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. All right, for today's episode, if there was one report that could help you close new business, instill confidence with your current clients on the jobs you're working, be used in both the retain and contingent model, and be able to provide you with a snapshot of the status of every single candidate you're recruiting for in a job, you'd be crazy not to use that, right? So you're probably thinking, I don't know, Sam, that sounds pretty awfully complicated to me, or that might be something that big firms can create, sure, but we're a small shop. We don't have the resources for that. So what if I said this was already natively built into some of the reporting tools that you're using, and all you have to do is click one button to access that info? So that's why I'm excited to have today's guest, Thom Alascio, partner and founder at Palermo Rhodes, a boutique executive search firm, joining us to talk about this report, how he uses it, and the massive unlocks it has produced for his team. So with that, let's get into the conversation. Thom, welcome to the show.
Hey, Sam, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm excited. When you were talking about this, I was just like, it is unbelievable. When you walk me through it, I'm just like, I know about this report, but hearing you explain it, I was just like, I think this is way more powerful than some of us even realize in a day-to-day. So I've almost called this like a cheat code that you've unlocked, and it's the candidate status report. So first tell me about like a little bit, what is it? And then what was the aha moment when you realized like this was something that was really important for you to be using?
Well, it's kind of funny because I never was really big into reports. When I started my own firm, I was big in KPIs. I knew what I had to do. And then when I got Loxo in 2015, 2016, I started messing around with it. And when I found the candidate report and realized that it could show me a quick snapshot of the workflow that I was in my job, right? So I'm working on a job for a chief bottle washer. It can show me everybody in the short list, everybody in the long list, everybody who I've screened, rejected in a PDF format or whatever. And then realized, wait a second, this is something that we could do prior to a search to help sell retainer. So what the process that we go, when we do a search, we do a job intake. And then the client says, hey, we're looking for a chief bottle washer in Chicago. He has to have X amount of years of experience, blah, 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 blah. We then go into Loxo Source, and at the same time, Sales Navigator. I'm not a LinkedIn recruiter guy. I use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And we do that search, right? So we put in titles, education, radius, whatever, and then in Loxo you hit yes, yes, yes. They go into your short list. You hit maybe. They go into long list. And then in Navigator, what I'll do is use a scraping tool like SalesQL or Scrup or whatever to grab the search I do. I'll go and do the search. I'll save a bunch in a list. I'll pull that out in a CSV format and then import it into Loxo. Before I discovered the Loxo system, everything was like Excel spreadsheets, and I'm not going to send that to a client. It looked kind of weird. But within Loxo, when you use the candidate status report, it brings up this really concise snapshot, and then you can click what you want, right? So when we do it, we put in the candidates, and let's say everybody is in long list, right? When you hit that candidate report, you can decide which ones you want to show to the client. So we usually choose name, obviously, title, location, and then you can choose either most recent history or a highlight, like in the candidate card is a highlight section. So when my recruiters are working on a search and they write in, this guy's making too much money, or he's too far away, or whatever it may be. That's available in the snapshot too. So think about that when you're sending it to a client to sell a retainer. That's what we use it for most, right? So here's the deal. You can now show the client, these are the people we're going to call. These are the titles of the people we're calling. And when you're doing that initial CSV Loxo source search, put in the highlights. I put little things in like college degree from Auburn, lives 5 miles from the plant, work for your direct competitor, little snippets. So when I then, when I print out that sheet and send it to the client, all those little highlights are in there, along with their name, their title, and their location, the company they work for and their location. So now the client can be like, wow, look at all these people that they're going to call for us. And they can also redline or circle. And I tell them this. I said, Mr. Employer, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go through and I want you to redline anybody you know. You know, guy came in and punched you in the face. You're not definitely going to hire him. He used to work here. And then guys like, oh, we love Bottle Washing Inc. We'd love somebody from that company. You circle that. Or I heard about Sam. I want him. Circle that. And then you send it back to us. And now we know, hey, stay away from these companies. Focus on these companies. And the really cool thing is that anytime the client can call and say, how's the search going? And if you're updating the profiles, if you're adding little notes every time you're rejecting them and saying why you rejected or whatever it is, you can then present that to the client with all that information. When you're selling retainer, you can use old ones. Even if you've never done this before, go to an old search, right? Do the candidate status report, pick name, pick location, pick title, pick company, and pick most recent notes, and make sure that that it looks good or whatever, and say, hey, this is what we did for XYZ Corporation, and we're going to do this for you too. We're going to go out, we're going to get a list of 70 or 80 people, and we'll present this list to you just like we did to them, and then at any time you can call us and say, how's the search going? And we can present this list to you and see you where you are. You'll see who's been screened, who's been contacted, who's been rejected. Shoot, you could even see who you've interviewed and what the notes are. It's up to you, Mr. Employer. But that is a plug and play system that's right there inside of Loxo, or probably your applicant, for us it's Loxo, but for any applicant tracking system out there that will give you the leverage and a powerful impact that other firms aren't doing. Mm-hmm. And you may say to me, well, wait a second, you're going to give your client all these names? Well, I mean, I do, but I only work on engaged and retained searches, right? But on a contingency, put in the first name and not the company, but the title and location, right? Or don't work with a client that you don't trust, right?
Yeah, that's probably a good point.
But the idea is to sell the retainer. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to differentiate yourself from the other recruiters that are out there, right? And that's what we're doing. No other firm that I know of, unless people that I've trained or talked about, say trained is the wrong word, people I've suggested use this because I'm in a Loxo users group, to do this. Most people don't do this, right? They tell the client how they've been doing this for 25 years and we're going to pull a list of 75 people that live in a 30-mile radius of your location. I can say that too, but now I can show them. And you can say to yourself, well, okay, I'm not going to do that with any contingency clients, and I'm going to use it to sell retainer with old ones, right? Use the searches before. And if he doesn't buy into it, then fine. He doesn't get it. And fear of missing out is a big thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. So there's so many good points in here. I almost want to break this down. You just gave
sure thing.
a better 5-level overview. I'm going to challenge some of our sales reps. Be like, if you can't say it as well as Tom, we've got to have a chat. So the first and biggest point is really getting into one, you talked about, you didn't really use a lot of reporting previously and the power of show, don't tell. I've been a recruiter for 25 years. Great. What have you gotten out of it? I know a lot of people have done things for many years and I'd be like, shouldn't you be further along with it at this point if that's how long you've been invested here? So the show versus tell. When you were talking about this as being a big selling point for you. So say you're pitching someone on your services, you've never worked with them before, and you want to show them this type of report. Well, if you aren't actively working the job, you don't have the candidates, what are you doing to be able to present something like this to them to help them get a visual of it?
So that's what I was talking about. Go to an old search, right? So you have searches. You have ones that you filled. You have ones that are on hold. Open. It doesn't matter. Go to an old search and pull up that report and tell them that's what you did for this client. Little white lie.
So you're
right?
just anonymizing information or removing
you
some of those columns that you say.
What if the search, okay, so I work a couple different niches, right? So what if the search is for a chief bottle washer and you did a search for an electrical engineer, right? There's no correlation. So you can give them that entire search for the electrical engineers with all the information on it. They're not going to call them. They're not going to do anything with them, right? And it's got your branding on it. The cool thing about the status report is you can put your logo and you can put your name of your company. You can put the job description in there. There's all those check boxes of what you want in that thing. So you can kind of adjust it however you want the client to see it. And using an old search, I have 6 or 7 of them saved in my drive, right? For when someone says, can you show me an example? I'm like, yeah, here you go. We just finished this search for AdTech, or we just finished this search for XYZ Corporation. And they're like, this is what we get? I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. We go out and we don't have a database in the sky. We go find 60, 70, 80, whatever the number of candidates are that are within a commutable distance, that are located in the area you want, whatever it is. And we present your opportunity to them. And we're going to tell you what each person said. Right? That's what you're getting with our services on a retained basis.
I really like that. And then once you get into the search, one of the things that we were talking about before is you'll pull, when you're talking about redlining, highlighting, it sounds like in your process, you'll pull almost a preliminary list to the in-depth search where you use that
Correct.
to orient on things. So tell me a little bit more about that.
So let's go back to the bottle washer for a second, right? So think about, there maybe are 4 or 5 titles, like bottle washer, bottle cleaner, bottle whatever. So you put all those titles into Loxo or Source or into Sales Navigator, and then you pull that list together, right? And I'm good at I've been doing this a long time, so I can kind of look and see real quick if these guys are at least have the minimum experience I have, right? So now I have the list of, let's say, 70 people, okay? And then I've presented that list into Loxo, and I make the status report, and then you give that to the client. Now we're on a retained. They've already paid the engagement fee. Yep. They're on board. They have that list in front of them, and now they can review each and every candidate and see maybe companies that they don't want to recruit from because they're in the process of buying. Maybe they see candidates they've interviewed before and they were idiots. Don't call that guy. Or maybe there's a company they're like, wow, if we could get a guy from Palermo Rhodes, we'd love that. And they circle that, right? We're in the process of doing a search for a company in Texas, and we gave them that report, and they highlighted 3 people. We want these. If you could get these 3 people, we would love it. And they're interviewing one of those guys right now. Right? They knew this guy's name. They knew he had the experience they were looking for, and they were like, we would love if you could talk to, his guy's name was Mac, if you could talk to Mac. So that's another thing, is that they're engaged in the process with you. They are this is a relationship. Like when I take on a search, I want this to be an engaged relationship with me and the client, right? I want to be thought of as part of their hiring team, so to speak, right? And not a transaction. I'm not looking to do I did transactions for the first 5 years of my life. I'm all about this relationship with the client. So they're engaged now. They see that they're part of the process. And you're not inundating them with 100 resumes to review, right? You're inundating them with a nice list that they can easily go through and say, yes, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Thank you, have at it. I've had clients send it back and go, there's not a single hands off on this. We'll take any of these guys. Like it, and they love it when they can call me and say, hey, how's the search going? I'll go, here, I just sent you the report. And they're like, okay, maybe we need to up. Perfect example. You're doing a search. Everybody you talk to is making $80,000 and your client wants to pay 70. You can tell your client, hey, everybody I talk to is making 80. And that he may or may not believe you. If you have a candidate report that you could present back to him with, my base is 75, I get a bonus to 80, and I have a company car, and you're putting these notes in each one, after, say, 20 calls, you print it out, send it to the client, and go, we have a problem. We've already talked to 20 people, all 20 have declined, and look at the notes. What are they going to say to that? Right? Yeah. That's different from you call them up and go, everybody I've talked to is making 80, we need to raise it. Sure they are, Tom, you just want more money. Now you have the proofs right there. And if anybody think, what, am I going to spend the next 2 hours typing in fake information to raise a fee? No, this is real notes. Yeah. And that's a powerful thing to be able to tell a client that way. And they will raise the salary, or they'll lower the expectations, or they'll say, okay, maybe we're going after too high guys, make it a junior bottle washer.
I really like that because one, it, like you said, further engages them. It really positions you as that strategic advisor, but 2, it allows you to be more agile with the job to make those changes. So you're not spinning your wheels. They're not thinking like, oh, Tom hasn't sent us anyone in 3 weeks. It's like, no, I have. We're just completely misaligned on comp, on benefits, or whatever that may be. So when your clients see this, they're much more open and saying like, okay, like what do you recommend? You're my strategic partner. Like, should we raise comp? Should we change the title, the position, the seniority of it? So they're making that change with it. And again, it's like, it changes the dynamic of Thom wants more money to Thom has done the due diligence. Thom has the data to support this. And when you see it in that report, it changes the whole dynamic of that conversation, so to speak, and making them willing to do that. So I really like that aspect of it. And then I want to drill in specifically. So this first pass list that you do, ballpark, how long does it usually take you to do like this first list?
30 minutes to 3 hours. It just depends on the difficulty of the search, right? So how much I get out of the Alascio source, how much I have to pull from LinkedIn Sales Navigator, how much time I have to spend pre-screening. When I say pre-screening, let's say I do a search for, we'll get rid of bottle washer for a second. Let's say I do a search for an electrical engineer, okay, in Boise, Idaho. Electrical engineer spans a lot of things, right? So it could be I'm looking for an electrical engineer that has experience in heavy commercial industrial manufacturing, right? So I may have to spend a little more time weeding out the guys that are doing residential, the guys that are doing commercial office buildings, and only focusing on the heavy industrial guys. So that takes a little more time than if I'm looking for a sales rep who's selling insulation in New York City, right? As long as they're working for the 20 top insulation companies, then I want those guys on the list. And so it just depends on how you're building your list, right? That really is dependent upon the consultant, the recruiter, the sourcer, whoever's doing it, how you're building your list. I'm not a big spray and pay guy, right? I'm a cold calling guy, right? So a lot of people will grab 800 sales reps that have the word insulation in their name, send an email out and go, hey, would you be interested in this job? That's not me. I tend to cold call everybody. So I want to focus on a list. We always say that a manageable list, cold calling list for a client is anywhere from 40 to 70 names. Right, so we try to, the harder the search, maybe more difficult, maybe you're going to have a smaller amount of names, but in general, 50-ish is kind of what we always get to. If you look at my jobs that are sourced now, I probably have anywhere from 40 to 60 names in almost every search. Okay. So the answer to your question, it varies, but 30 minutes to 3 hours is probably a good area to stay in.
Yeah, and so that takes your expertise. You're working in certain niches, but the other advantage to it that I'm thinking about is your client is able to see how quickly you're working on this. You could, after 3 hours, say, hey, here's a short list. Like, one, they get to see like, holy cow, like he's actually got this reined in pretty well. They're going through highlighting, redlining. So you're already presenting some options to them, and then you're optimizing off of that too. So what's going to happen is you're going to clean that list. You're going to get even more out into that second batch that comes back to them, and whether it's a couple days or a week afterward, is even better. So it's like you've already set the bar here, and you've somehow managed to exceed it. So from a client, not appreciation, but just their expectations, especially after working with so many different agencies, I bet that their minds are blown when they see this type of output from your team.
When they see someone, and I'll give you an example. We got this guy named Brent Bunting in Canada. When he was on the list, that was the number one guy. They were like, oh my God, you found Brent Bunting? We would love to hire Brent Bunting. I made one call. Brent Bunting was interested. 4 weeks later, Brent Bunting was working at the company. That was it for the entire. They saw his name and said, if you can get him, we'll hire him. That's all I had to do. Same thing happened. We were doing a pavement engineer. This is a long time ago in Orlando. And I said, who would you want to hire? This is before we did the Alascio list, right? Like, we want Steve or Bill that work at these two companies. Okay. We called both. One was interested to hire him. Right? When you're engaged with your client like that, and you can present them a name that they notice, or say to them, hey, who would you like to hire off and they go, oh my gosh, you got Thom Alascio. We want Thom Alascio. Call Thom Alascio. You get him. We'll hire him. That makes you don't have to call anybody else, right? Like, you're presenting this to your client and engaging them to help you with the search. And there might be a name on there that is like, if you could get us that guy, the search is done. Wouldn't you like to know that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because I feel like a lot of recruiters take, what's the job that you want me to fill? Give me the job description. I'm going to go find the list. How many stop to ask that simple question of like, do you have anyone in mind already? Or do you have an example of someone that
fits on my job intake form? They still sometimes forget to tell you, or they won't remember that guy's name. And that's why this is powerful, right? So I do ask, what companies would you like to hire from? Is there any companies that are hands off? Is there any candidates you know of that you'd like to reach out to? I ask that question, and hardly ever, they may say, don't call XYZ Corporation because we can collaborate a lot. But when you present that list to them and they start going down it, and all of a sudden Brent Bunting pops out, they're like, oh, I forgot about, yeah, him. That makes your job so much easier and makes you seem like a rock star, right?
Yeah.
Like you just presented them with this great list, and now all of a sudden, like, oh, that's the guy.
It's simple. Like, that's the thing is, I feel like sometimes we just like to overcomplicate things. Like, look at all this tech that I can use to find this person. It's like, well, what if I just ask, like, is there a Brent Bunting out there that you want to hire? Like, use Loxo or not, I don't care. But
Yeah.
that makes your job easier to figure out, like, how do you make them happy? How do you find the right person?
You could do this in an Excel spreadsheet. I don't recommend it, but you could, right? If you wanted to run, and a lot of recruiters, old school recruiters, they run off Excel spreadsheets. You could do this. But you have to remember is you want to get clients that want to be part of the team, that value you as a trusted advisor, that value you as a search consultant and not as a transactional resume house, right? Don't do this as a resume, run into the copy machine or whatever. I'm dating myself, run into the fax machine, faxing resumes, right? No, this is for the clients that want to work with you as a trusted advisor, part of your team, and really take what you bring to the table as just as important as their accountant, their attorney, their business consultant, or whatever. That's what you use this for.
Yeah, I mean, it's so simple, easy. Sometimes we don't have to overcomplicate things. So this, as I said earlier, it's like, this sounds too good to be true. Like, how easy is this? Some reporting tools have the capability. It's literally like one click of a button. Others list through, again, like, if someone doesn't use Loxo or doesn't have something, but they want to build this report for them, what would you say are like 3 to 5, 10, however many columns of data points that you would typically include in this type of thing?
So 4, right? So name, and you could do just first name if you're worried. But again, I'm going to go back to, you don't trust your client, don't work with them. Okay. So name, title, company, location if it's important, right?
Okay.
And if not, then the last one is a note, a detail, a highlight, something that can, and it doesn't have to be for every single one, right? So if you put a list of 50 together, oftentimes you'll see when we send that project list to a client, there might be 10, 15, 20 highlights, because not everyone has a highlight that I can really highlight, right? But if there's something that I think is important that the client will want to know about, that he went to the same school as a client, or that he worked for a direct competitor, or whatever it is. So if you're going to do that in an Excel spreadsheet, it's the same thing. You use SalesQL or whatever it is to scrape it off LinkedIn or however you do it. You have your Excel spreadsheet, delete all your columns except for name, title, location if it's relevant, company, and then one that, call that one highlight or note or whatever, and then put your little notes about each one and then send that to the client. And I would say, send it as a PDF. Not as, you can always convert an Excel spreadsheet to a PDF. So format it that way. It looks a little nicer. Put your letterhead on it. That's how we do it. Ours are very, they look nice when the client gets it. It's like, oh, look at this. Because we put the job description, any notes about the job that we think is imperative, the hiring manager or anybody who's involved in the process, the recruiter, and then our logo, right? So they know, they look at this and go, and what the name of the search is, right? Chief Bottle Washer, Chicago, Illinois, XYZ Corporation. That's what they see. And so then they can look at it and go, okay, wow. And if you're going to do it in an Excel spreadsheet, you might need to format a little bit differently than what we can do easily with Loxo. But again, you want that to seem like you do this all the time.
Yep.
That this is something that all clients get. And that's why I said, go back and, if you're going to do the Excel and not use Loxo or Crelate or any of the other ones out there, go make a couple that you have, right? From older searches. So if you're trying to woo a new client, say, oh, let me show you what we did for XYZ Corporation. And you can send it to them without any worry of, he's going to steal client candidates from me or whatever it is, right? I mean, I've shared this with umpteens amounts of people and shared old lists. Like, you want to go call the candidates? I don't care. Fine. Half the guys didn't want the job anyway, so if you can get them, I don't care. So,
yeah,
it's, I'm a trusting person until you give me a reason not to trust you. So, I need to often tell people that, like, hey, I'm pretty trusting, so I don't mind giving this out. But, just be careful.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say, you're a trusting person, because one column I didn't hear included in there was their resume. Because I know sometimes people will give resumes to the hiring managers, and then all of a sudden they come in with the magnifying glass and they're just like, oh, I know how to review this better than you.
I don't have
Where
resumes.
does that fall into play?
Sam,
Okay.
I don't have resumes. Again, I'm a cold calling passive candidate recruiter. Any search that I do, 99% of the time, every single candidate on the list is gainfully employed, has no idea that there's a great opportunity out there, and then I call them. And then, to sell another Loxo feature is if I need something to give to the client, we use the branded resume in conjunction with the LinkedIn PDF that you can pull from LinkedIn, and then the intake section of Loxo to create this, what we call our confidential data summary in lieu of a resume. Mr. Employer, as you know, we only recruit passive candidates. Sam does not have an updated resume. Here is a confidential data summary we put together on him for your interview tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Rest assured, if you got somebody giving you a hard time, rest assured, Mr. Employer, if things go well, I'll have a resume for you before he comes into your office to meet. Right? You're selling that you're getting passive candidates that don't have resumes sitting on their desks waiting for me to call. You're recruiting people who aren't looking, and so using the branded resume within Loxo is a real powerful tool too. But back to the report, there's no, and again, even if I had resumes on all of them, no, you don't get that because I haven't recruited them yet. Like this is a source list. This is who we're going to call and present your opportunity to. So even if I had 10 resumes on 10 of the guys in there, why am I going to send them to you? Because they may not be interested in your job. There's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah, completely.
Okay.
I've talked to recruiters before that they say anytime that I even come close to just making that list, I have the hiring manager asking, I want to see resumes that support it. I want to review it. But again, I think that goes back to the trust side. It's well, why are you hiring me in the first place? Why don't you just outsource someone who can source a list for you and then you take it from there?
Yeah. I mean, that whole where's the resume? Well, we haven't recruited them yet. Why would they have a resume? And chances are, when I do recruit them, they're not. Do you have a resume, Mr. Employer? If Korn Ferry called you tomorrow and said, "Hey, we would love for you to look at this CFO position in Chicago," do you have an updated resume? It's sitting on your desk. No. Well, why do you think these guys are? Well, isn't that what you do? No, that's what a staffing agency does. And there's a lot of cheaper. I'm really expensive. You want to? I'll get you 4 or 5 cheap staffing agencies. You can use them, and then when they fail, you can call me back, and we can do it the right way.
Yeah, I like that. Because I mean, it's a simple question that just immediately reframes them to be oh yeah, I guess I don't.
You have to sell that though. Yep. So many recruiters forget you have to sell that we are not a staffing agency. That you are hiring us to find passive candidates who are not looking to make job changes so they can get this great opportunity presented to them, and you're not fighting with 7 other firms and 9 other recruiters and 8 other no. It's what we do. I go and find you a gainfully employed candidate who's maybe working for a smaller company, a company in trouble, whatever it is, and say, hey, there's this great opportunity around the corner. Why wouldn't you want to talk to them?
Yeah. So we've gone through the full report, and now you present this to your prospect. You want to land the job. You mentioned that this has significantly changed your win rates, your time to close. What kind of numbers have you seen here in terms of that?
We were able basically to stop doing contingency completely last year, right? We slowly, started selling this to the clients that we knew we could sell it to, or newer clients, anybody who would call me, because I'm busy, right? So if you call me and you want to do a search, it's retained. I don't even have to present this, but I still do. But due to the current economic and employment situation in the United States today, we are no longer able to work on contingency searches. I'm sorry. That's what we say. That is the standard thing. Due to the current economic climate and the current employment climate in our industry, we are no longer able to work on contingency searches. But starting out, we didn't think about saying that, right? And we were using this with clients that gave us harder searches. Hey, Steve, this is a much harder search, and we're going to work it this way. You're going to pay us this amount of money up front. We're going to do this, right? And then when we started using the candidate report, it became a lot easier. I transitioned to retainer before this, and then when we brought this on, it made it so much easier to the point now I don't have a single contingency search. Well, I have one client that it uses only me exclusively, so I don't even ask him for money. But I could call him right now and go, hey, I need a $3,000 retainer for this, and they'd send me a check tomorrow. But every other search we have on our desk is 100% retained or engagement fee because we don't do the third, a third, and a third, right? So every single search from this day forward, and we're raising our rates too. We're going up to 5,000 instead of 3, and 10,000 for 2, right? So it allows you to really be selective on who you're going to work with. When you have 10 searches that are all engaged, you can turn down so much other crap that comes your way. And that's what recruiters like. Everybody's like, oh, I need business, I need business. No, you only need really good business with 3 or 4 companies. Because if you're a solo guy, right, and you're, so to me, I need to make a lot of money. But most people can live on 150 or 200 grand a year. That's what, 10 deals? 1 a month at the most, right? How many clients do you need to do that? Right? So start thinking strategically that way. Start turning away crappy business, low fees, contingency with 3 other recruiters working on it, searches that have 5 others, they have 5 internal candidates. Fine, you want me to work on it? I'll do it. You have 5 internal candidates. You want to see what's better out there? Yeah, it's $5,000. And my clients pay that. They will call me and say, we have 3 internal candidates for this engineering manager position in Chicago. And we want to make sure we're hiring the right person. Can you go out and do a search for us? And see, it's 5,000. Yeah, of course. No questions asked. I'm going to go do free work for you. I'm going to go out and search and call everybody in Chicago, whatever it is. You have 3 guys you're going to hire internally. You want to make sure and you're going to want me to do it for free? No, it doesn't work that way. And you have to stand your ground on those. And yeah, you may lose a little business, but I had one very good client that I told him was no longer working on the contingency. They told me they wouldn't work on engaged. I said, I understand. 3 months later, they came back and said they were ready to pay engaged because they couldn't find someone to fill their searches. So, it's scary, but this job was scary. So
Yeah, I mean, it all circles back to the same thing we've been saying this whole time. Trust, the quality of your work. If you stand by those, like, you can do all that. Your platform should be able to enable you as part of it. But at the end of the day, when all these pieces come together, that's where the magic happens for you in your business, and it makes it easier for you at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's that I'm not looking to be a transactional. I'm not looking to get into a transactional relationship with you, Sam. Mm-hmm. I'm looking to get into a relationship where we're working together, fill your positions, that I'm your trusted advisor. I'm your strategic recruiting partner. If you're looking for a transactional recruiter, I am the wrong guy. You have to stand by that, right? If you want to work transaction, you're fine. I know a lot of recruiters, all they work is contingency. All they want to do is one and done. They get one guy out, they move on. And yeah, you can make a nice living. I didn't like that headache. I didn't like that grind. I like that I can grab a search, get paid $3,000 up front, put all the search together, and look, we fill 95% of the searches we take on at a retained, engaged basis, right? I say this when they start hemming and hawing, I don't want your $3,000. It does not pay my mortgage payment. I want your $25,000, your $30,000. If I sat around pulling $3,000 retainers from companies and didn't fill them, I'm going to be out of business quick, and I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage. So why would I want your $3,000? And if $3,000 is going to break you, then we have a serious problem because I'm expensive. And if you end up hiring somebody, it's going to cost you $30,000. Can you afford that? Like, you just kind of like talk to them like any other, like an accountant, like an attorney. Attorneys don't work for free. Accountants don't work for free. Why do we work for free? And this candidate status report allows you to have the same type of information and impact that an accountant or an attorney would have, presenting them with their work, so to speak.
Yeah. No, honestly, I couldn't think of a better way to wrap this. So is there anything else with like this report or any last minute, wisdom nuggets for people that are listening to think about as part of this?
Take your time and test the report. There's a lot of boxes you can check and uncheck. There's a lot of things you can put in there or take out. What works for you, right? Make sure that, however that format's going to be, it works for you, that there's a lot of different ways to do it, but make sure it works for you. So take your time. Don't just go in there, hit the report and go, well, Tom said to do that. No, you got to look at, do you want it to be the highlight? Do you want it to be at the last history or the last comment, whatever it is, right? Take your time and think about how you want that to look when you do that search.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So yeah, it's do that, build it in the software, but then put it in the PDF, print it out, hold it, because that's what it's going to be like when your clients do finally have that. And that's where you're going to have that really, I don't know, the scoped magnifying glass on it. You're going to pick up any little things. The spacing's off. I need to make my header bigger. I need to do this or that, or like I should add something in. So yeah, I love that point.
You have to be careful. If your job description is too big and it's got bullet points, it doesn't format well.
Yep.
In the job description section, right? So maybe the engineers can fix that. But so little things like that, right? Like so, you may have in notes stuff you don't want them to see and not pay attention to it. Click the notes section, and next thing you know, they're like, these guys are assholes, but we're going to fill the position anyways in the notes, right? So just take your time, work through it, and think because you can do the entire thing. You can do certain workflows. I mean, it's really highly customizable, but take your time before you do it.
Yeah. So perfect. Well, Thom, this has been an absolute masterclass.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. If people want to learn more about you, learn more from you, you're constantly sharing knowledge. Where should people check you out at?
So we have a YouTube channel. It's youtube.com // Palermo Rhodes, Palermo Rhodes, Rhodes. I do random acts of kindness every day after 4:00 if you need help with something. So my cell is 772-532-9785. My email is thomas@prsearchinc.com if you want to reach out to me there. I get, as Sam said, I give back. I'm in all the big Facebook recruiter groups. We have a Discord, Headhunters and Recruiters Discord. You can hit me up on there too, as well as LinkedIn in Thom Alascio, all one word.
How do I do as much as you do? That's a lot. I love it. No. Jokes aside, that's
ADHD.
Hey, it's a superpower.
And I don't sleep.
Use it, so.
And I don't. Yeah, it is. In my opinion, it is. I harnessed ADHD to get to where I am today.
Yeah, well, good for you. So maybe that's a future conversation. I know a lot of us have, different things that we work through. So perfect. Well, Thom, I truly, truly, truly appreciate you joining. I know I learned a lot from this, let alone.
Sam, I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, so perfect. Well, as we wrap, the final spiel, Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. If you like this episode, and not sure where to go next, we'll give you a link to a similar episode like this to continue your listening journey. You can find show notes in the description of your favorite podcast streaming platform. We also have it on our website, loxo.co/podcast. Full video episodes available, YouTube, website. And if you have questions, send them to us, podcast@loxo.co. Thom just gave you his email address if you want to send him any questions. But that's the wrap. So everyone, appreciate you listening. That's the show. This was an incredible interview with Thom. Thanks, y'all. Till next time.